So we were just really just overextending ourselves and burnt out, and so we resigned, and it just opened up the door for God to move us to where He wanted to move us to. I think that you could get overextended and sometimes working so much that we didn't see that God really wanted us to grow and expand and learn. And there was I remember I ran into some people and I met some people and they invited me to this men's Bible study. I could never do it and I could never go because of my responsibilities at the church and whatnot. And so I finally said, hey, I'll go to that Bible study. And I didn't know anything about the church, just hey, well, I'll go to a men's Bible study. Ended up going, and I really felt a connection with some of the men there and thought, wow, this is really good. And told Brenda about it. I said, well, maybe we should visit the church. And I still only had a church name. I still didn't pay attention. I'm one of those guys. I kind of don't pay attention to what's on the name under the main name of the church, the denomination. I pay attention to what they preach and teach. And we went to the church, and it was a Nazarene church, and the pastor was gone, and it was a good test of a church when the pastor's not there, to see what it's like. And so we did, and we went to the church and felt something there, felt a drawing there. Never been to a Nazarene church before. You hadn't either, right? Yeah. And so and this wasn't a very quote unquote strict Nazarene, but kind of mid-range Nazarene church. And so we end up going back again. And when the pastor got back, he came. He's like, he heard about us and came and found us, and I went to have coffee with him, and he knowing our background after having coffee, he's like, man, I'd love for you to get involved. And I said, well, we like to serve, and so we'll serve, and we kind of served here and there. But then he really wanted me to take over the youth ministry, which was struggling at the time, but was just really a hangout type thing and not a full ministry. And even though the church had like 70 youth, only like 5 would go to the youth ministry. So we took over that and started just really pouring into those young people and pouring into this this thing of just serving, loving, not saying yes to everything. We didn't just go and get involved in all the different areas. We just completely wanted to love on these youth, and that's what we did. And it was a really blessed time and during that season. And I remember the youth really just taking over spiritually in a lot of areas, and like just prayer circles in the mornings before Sunday services and praying over the service, and youth up at the altars just pouring their hearts out to the Lord. Tongues of fire coming during one of the Bible studies with youth leaders. We started a youth leadership training program, and God was just really blessing our lives. So our business was taking off. I started my own business during that time. Not to say it wasn't hard. I mean, I was doing my own security systems installs and new construction, and took on builders. And even in one of those times when I called Brenda up and I was like, got to tell you something. One of my fun, what was my funny thing?
This is what I get. Okay, don't freak out.
That's what I start with. Don't freak out. Something happened, right?
I mean, really, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Yeah. And I was on a job site. It was this insane property that had a bunch of custom homes, multi-million-dollar homes being built on it, and they had exotic animals running around the property all over the place. And it was out in the woods, but that's one of the reasons they needed the land for all the exotic animals. And I would wire up these homes with the wires going in certain places. So the sheetrock had just got put on this house that's behind. And I went out to do it myself. And I cut the hole where I knew the wire was, stuck my finger in there, and a rattlesnake bit me right here. And so, a rattlesnake in the wall. What happened is the house, the insulation was left in the garage. It was during a colder time in Texas. But snakes curl up in the insulation. Sometimes they'll get them all out. Sometimes they wouldn't. And luckily the snake was dying. It was starving, but it hit my finger. I was driving a huge truck, big old dually standard. It had a 12-foot bed on it. It was a massive work truck. And I'm shifting like this, my hands swelling up. There's no emergency rooms anywhere out near close to there. And I know a lot about reptiles, so I knew I had to get fast.
Yep.
Already got out anything I could get out by sucking out, spitting out. And so rashes going up my arm. It was crazy. And the first emergency center, the closest one I got to, was like, we can't deal with rattlesnakes bites here.
In the hill country.
In Texas, right? And so they called around in the local town there, and it was close to home, but there was no hospital yet. It was just the emergency room. And but they called around. There's no doctors that could deal with it. So I had to go to San Antonio, which is another 45-minute drive, but they were legally bound to not let me drive because I wanted to drive myself, because the ambulance ride was like $500 or $1,000. It's like, I ain't paying that.
So I'm at home when I get the call. I've got 2 toddlers and I'm pregnant, very pregnant with our 3rd child. And my grandparents have come in for a visit. So my grandfather had to go and get him where he was and take him into San Antonio to a clinic?
The Methodist Hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at the hospital there, and they're treating it, but they don't know. There's a lot of questions because I didn't have the actual snake. I thought it was a rattlesnake. It was in a wall, but what venom, anti-venom, there's all kinds of questions. So they're treating it, and I was up at the observation part of it, and I was like, I just want to go home. And they're like, well, we don't want you to go home. And I was like, but I'm just going to sit here so you observe me. There's going to be people with me. They could observe me, and Brenda's grandfather was there. Like, we'll keep an eye on him, and so we went home. Telling that story because there's still ups and downs, right? Like, this wasn't a miracle story. This was I got bit by a snake. Probably a miracle that I didn't die.
You probably got a heavenly anti-venom.
Yeah. And I know I lost feeling in this part of my finger, and it turned black for a little while and all that junk. And but in the middle of that, we're still just pressing into God, doing the ministry, building a business. I ended up with a bunch of crews on the road. We had a huge residential business that had huge contracts. I was constantly busy. And then I started doing Department of Defense work and doing some of those contracts, and met this guy, and he brought in a bunch of huge clients. Yep. And I was way too busy. He had a lot of commercial clients that he could bring in, and I wanted to expand the business for the commercial part. Mm-hmm. And, so I brought him in as a partner in the business. We were living a pretty decent life. Yeah. When the youth needed something, we just cut a check. I remember our youth events, our youth trips, we did a trip to New Mexico every year. And when kids couldn't afford it, we just paid for them to go. Yeah. We raised money and stuff, but whatever was lacking, we're just like, okay, here you go. And pay for it, that type of thing. We went on a nice cruise. I paid cash for it. You're like, we need a vacation. I didn't think it through, but I went and got a vacation, paid for it, over $4,000 just for the tickets, and then spend another $6,000 on the cruise. But she was a nursing mother with her youngest child, and I didn't think that one through. But you wanted a vacation, so I got you a vacation. But life was going really good. We're busy, more building our kingdom, I would say, and then focus on what God was calling us to. There's a difference, and later on in life, I worked jobs where I got paid really good, but focusing on where God wanted me, not where I wanted to be. And even in this time, I had a one story of a miracle time during this time is where God opened up the door. I could speak at Southern Nazarene University, where we took youth every summer. And but I remember speaking, and I was speaking on the lifestyle of worship. And as worship is not just Sunday mornings for an hour, it's a lifestyle that we need to worship throughout the day. And just in speaking on this, and it wasn't like anything profound, I thought. But I guess God was just wanting to really move and show me how he can move. And laughter broke out, and kids were on the floor laughing and rolling, and I never seen it.
Yeah.
This is like holy roller type stuff. And I had no clue what was going on. I'm like, whoa, what do you do with this? I don't know what's going on. And thought
he's not that funny.
It was just like craziness. And we had so many encounters with the students and young people, and just all throughout that week. And God just really showed me his heart for the fatherless and the motherless, and it was just a beautiful time. And I was, nicely asked never to come back and speak. A little bit too extreme for the Nazarene Church. And then I went to do a job. I was helping the employees out, and we're moving TVs, and this is back when TVs used to be huge, and we're replacing them with LCD TVs, and we had to move the old ones out, and I'm just helping to get this job done. It was a really big client. They were spending $10,000 plus per TV that they put in. It was a huge client. And my back popped when I went to pick up this TV, and that was it. It just went out. It just went completely out. So, I mean, I still had the back injury, but I was dealing with the pain and the uncomfortableness and doing medications and TENS units and whatnot during all this
Band-Aid
time.
fixes.
Yeah, but not really paying attention that my back was in severe, because the original doctors, their prognosis and reading of the MRIs was wrong. And they didn't do their job like they should have. And what ended up happening is we somehow got referred to a great doctor, Dr. Sear in San Antonio. And
I actually, what happened was,
correct me.
yeah, sorry. We were in and out of the emergency room about every 3 days because we couldn't control his pain at home. And I would have to-go bags for my kids with like toys and coloring and things to take to entertain 3 toddlers in the ER, for hours. And I reached my rock bottom, and I actually had a suicide plan. Like it was for the whole family. I was going to just end it. I couldn't do it anymore. I had no hope. I felt so lost. I couldn't see a way out of our situation. And actually, in a moment of just pouring my heart out to the Lord, I felt very strongly to just go get the Yellow Pages, back when there were Yellow Pages.
That was a book of numbers for those young people watching.
And I don't even remember what I looked up. It was the Holy Spirit. He just gave me whatever to look up. And Dr. Sear was the first spinal surgeon that I found. And I called them, and they got us in for an appointment very, very quickly. And as soon as they looked at his MRI, his original MRI that probably 10 different doctors at least had looked at over the years, he said, "You have 2 blown discs. Nobody's ever told you this?" And we said, "No, nobody has ever told us this." And so we, from the first appointment till the day of surgery, was 10 days. And they said they had never, ever had a patient get approved for surgery and have everything work out to have surgery that quickly.
Yeah. And it was really God. It was a blessing. Dr. Sear studied at the Mayo Clinic. It was they only select one surgeon a year. I mean, he was a surgeon, spinal surgeon. There, he was very meticulous. He planned everything out. Very, very much so. Did another MRI. We also had a test to prove that there was blown disc, which was very painful. They stick a needle into the disc and inject it with fluid, and have to watch, but you can't be on any medication. I'm watching on the screen, and then it hit me, and 4 guys had to hold me down, and the injection fluid went all over my nerves, caused all kinds of more pain. But even in this time, like a senior pastor at the church was at the hospital when she told me the story that you're in so much pain. The senior pastor said he asked them to give me something more, something stronger, and they said, "Well, we given enough morphine to knock out a horse," I think is what the term they use, but we can't. There's nothing else we give him. His pain is broken through that bad that we can't even touch the pain. I mean, I was just in severe pain. So that first surgery was about 13 hours.
Yep.
And they fused together 360 fusion and put a cadaver bone in where the disc is supposed to be. Put a metal plate with 4 screws in it, and then did 6 screws on the other side.
So they actually started him on it face down and worked on his back, and then after they did all the spinal stuff, they actually flipped him over and had surgeons that came in and pulled all of his like intestines and everything out of the way so that they could then get to the front side of his spine where they put the locking plate on.
I remember the room being full, like 19.
It was a lot of doctors and nurses.
And it was a blessing, but as with surgeries go, there was still some issues. I had so much nerve damage that my leg would give out and I would fall. Brenda would follow me, or just walk around the couch and I'd just fall down, that type of thing. And during this surgery is when some more bad stuff was happening. And I didn't realize how little, let's say, my business partner actually did. And I did more of the work. And since I wasn't bringing in work and their work was shutting down, I wasn't on sites to help with the issues that would come up and fix problems. And the way my mind works, I just could fix issues really well. And so there was a lot of issues. So he cleaned out our accounts, business accounts. I was, in and out of, before the surgery on a bunch of pain medication. I was just doing paperwork from home. I would sign stuff and like, we had these clients and this work. And he was just getting a bunch of TVs and stuff. And this is back when a 45-inch TV would go for like $9,000, $10,000. And just cleaned out our accounts, our tools, and also took a bunch of TVs and supplies from all of our wholesalers, which are all in my name, and caused a bunch of legal issues. And so then we have people knocking on the door, wanting their money back and wanting this and wanting that, and this whole mess piled up on top of us. It was just really crazy what's going on, and still trying to do ministry stuff and still trying to be
Stay
with
faithful.
the youth. And there's times where things were really great, better, and we'll feel kind of a touch from God, but didn't know what it was, and get some reprieve, but not healing, not restoration. I could go into those type of talks later, but then I fell down the steps. My leg gave out.
Getting ready to leave the house for an interview.
Yeah, and broke the surgery, the fusion that was done before, and so that was painful.
And blew 2 more discs.
Yeah, and so I remember I had a job to finish out, and I finished out the day I went in for the hospital. I was supposed to go in and went into the hospital and finished out this job. You helped me doing a home theater install. You helped me install the speakers and whatnot, just to try to get a little bit of cash flow.
Yeah.
And we had lost a lot during this time. We lost our home. We lost cars.
We were living with friends.
And then we had to move in with friends, and then I went in for another surgery. And this time they did L2 to S1, and did fusions, put 14 screws, 2 metal rods, a metal plate, and just really did a lot of work. Another 12, 13-hour surgery, sitting at the hospital and, just going through this. And it wasn't done yet. The storm.
Nope.
and we're trying to do the right thing with God, and pressing in and still believing in God, and through this, and we end up the senior pastor of the church that I was working at, he ended up getting promoted, and which sent him to another church, another city, and I wasn't fully ordained yet. I was working on ordination, but I wasn't fully ordained, and so they had an interim pastor come in, and the first thing the interim pastor did was have a meeting with me. This is after the surgery, and I go to Starbucks to meet with him, and he said basically that you have hidden sin in your life. It's obvious because of your back injuries. God is punishing you and not blessing you, and so you need to resign. And I remember sitting there going, wow, what a just bad viewpoint of God.
Bad theology.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, wow. I mean, how you view the Father as being that punishing of a father, and he's not. He doesn't break your back because you did wrong. And I'm a pretty open guy. When I'm messing up, I'd let people know I'm messing up. I'm believing in God for something crazy. I let people know that too. You know, I mean, I'm just that guy, and pretty open book. But and I remember telling Brenda, she's like, wow, that's crazy. And then we had to have a going away, our resigning party, and we had to put on the smiley faces, and they gave us these
An
little
award.
crystal things that were etched with our names for all the service and great work and all that. But and then the friends that we're staying with were not happy with convictions that we had, right? And convictions about kids, and then you had a hurt husband that couldn't work and he needed help, just even getting around. Some of the medication would really freak me out in the middle of the night, and
I mean, he couldn't shower, he couldn't go to the bathroom by himself, he couldn't go up and down the stairs to get food, he couldn't care for
3
himself.
kids, and but not just trying to take care of them, but then also God really convicted you not to just get a job and go and do stuff, and the people we were living with didn't quite like that, and so then we were told that we had to move out. Yeah, and so we ended up moving to a small town in Texas called Brady, Texas, little tiny town. Never lived in a small town like that before. My brother lived there, and so I went to just reconnect. It was a very hard transition there, and we ended up in government housing, and then going to church though. We wanted to go to church. We found a local church, and the town had plenty of them, 43 churches or 44 churches in a town of 5,000, and we found a church that we liked. It was decent. We went Sunday mornings and just kind of sat in the back, and we had just pressing in, like, God, what do you have us there for, and what are we doing? And
you're still like fresh off surgery.
Yeah,
You've got a back brace
and
a cane.
And everything, and we're in there, and it was in worship, right? And so this is a church that they owned a middle school building and met in the auditorium where the middle school used to use. And so only like 60, 80 people on Sunday mornings. And we sat in the back, really just kind of general talk with people, just kind of the newer people. But we're sitting in the back, no one around us. And I heard God's voice, the audible voice of God. And I'll never forget it. But, because I turned around to look who was talking to me, and then realized, this is not someone talking to me, messing with me. Felt like, I didn't feel like I heard God's voice say, stop taking your medicine, for the Lord your God has healed your back. And I tell you that right there in worship. And what was your thought?
I don't even know. I mean, probably my first thought was remembering when you went cold turkey off the meds, years before. But honestly, just hopeful, because I just thought, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Can we breathe again?
Yeah.
Can we actually start moving forward again?
Yeah. And so I did. I stopped taking my medicine, and was really not completely 100% out of pain. I still couldn't bend. I'll have pain
range of motion issues for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't bend and put on socks and shoes and stuff. I still needed assistance. I'll have pain if it got cold or it's going to rain.
And let's be honest, it doesn't get very cold in Texas.
Yeah, that doesn't get cold in Texas. Or like rain, thunderstorms, which are a lot of thunderstorms in Texas. I could feel the metal in my back. It just hurt in the bone and stuff. And it was very painful, very stiff still. But we just started just getting more involved in the church and talking with the pastor. And the pastor was a really good guy, good Baptist pastor. And we were in a Church of Christ church. That's another long story. But he was from Alabama, really good guy. And so he really wanted me on staff and come on staff and help him there at the church. And it was an elder-owned, elder-ran church. He was an employee of the church and wanted me to come on staff with him. And I did. We prayed about it. We sought God on it. Felt like God was saying, yeah, this is time, And so we did. We went on staff and then started asking questions about the building and finding out that, there's all this room not being used, and there's no youth ministry really. There's no children's ministry. So we built it up from the ground up. There's a little bit of children's ministry, but just kind of really just started doing stuff. We raised money, painted rooms, God's blessed us during this time. I mean, it was good. Even though there's still hardships that we're going through, because the belief system there is, if you're called to ministry, you're called to pastor, then you're taking a vow of poverty. And my salary was $218 a week. I had 3 children and a wife to take care of, living in government housing, and the elders were not happy with the fact that I had a business. And so we just kind of just kind of dealt with it, went back and forth with a lot of things during this time, and we're having a lot of seeing God really move through the youth ministry, seeing events and kids coming to Christ, lots of kids coming to Christ, and the senior pastor resigned, went back to Alabama.
Yep.
Couldn't take it anymore. Left me as the only staff pastor there, and it was a battle. It was a battle no matter what I did. I was always wrong, and still dealing with with not being able to pay the restitution of the business stuff that happened, and dealing with stuff of that, and going to court dates and trying to fight. And I did prove that I was in the hospital when a lot of stuff was happening, so the judge didn't put any kind of jail time, anything like that on, just restitution, because that proof was there. But someone had to make restitution, and I agreed. Someone did have to make restitution, and so we were trying to do that and making it work. And God finally allowed me to resign from the church. But we're constantly fighting that. It was the not talk about salvations on Sunday. I think it was the final straw. But
right.
And so. We had started our own business, and we had it in the local town. I had this building, a huge building, but we used part of it. I even bought a pet shop and moved it there, and because I just got to do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And the elders that church were very influential of that town, and were some of the wealthiest people of that town. But anyway, they blockaded pretty much my business, and we lost all clients after I resigned. And couldn't even get any jobs whatsoever. So we ended up having to shut down the business. We also didn't have the money to pay restitution. So then I had the oversight probation officer that was over it until I paid the restitution. Didn't like me because I didn't go to any jail time. Thought I got off easy and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, long story short, I had to deal with that, closing down the business. I was sick as can be. My kidney was really at a point of failure to where I couldn't take antibiotics anymore because it wasn't cleaning out my system. And so I had that going on, and we lost everything and then ended up having to move again. And I moved Brenda and the kids first, so I could close out everything there in Brady as best as possible, sell off anything and everything I could. And God did bless us with a bunch of selling off of stuff. But and then the financial thing came to a head with the restitution, which was put me in jail for a little bit, and which caused more issues in family and friends. And but God really provided this insight and knowing our hearts, knowing that we were just trying to do the right thing to a friend of ours that helped us just pay it all off and take care of it, and not have to have that financial or legal burden anymore. And so once the restitution was completely paid off, all of it was dropped. It was deferred adjudication, I believe it was called, and it was just dropped off, and that's the end of it. And so we paid that, but then had to move to Austin, Texas, and live with friends.
Yep.
Again, and trying to figure out what is next for us, God. I mean, can you see that it's a journey of pressing in? It's a journey of sometimes of battles. It's fighting the enemies, trying to discourage, and try to get you to forget about the good times and just focus on the bad stuff that happened. There's a lot of family battles, a lot of even families telling Brenda that she should just divorce me, and trying to. The enemy trying to break up our marriage, and then our kids just trying to keep them focused on good things and fun things and not realize how much we're going through. Even though Paige was old enough to start seeing some of it, she was feeling a lot
before we realized that she was.
Yeah, and then she was even still having to help me get dressed at times when you couldn't, or something was going on with other kids or whatnot. And so we're in desperate need of a miracle. As we were going through this journey and all this stuff moving again, we had to move in with friends again. It was not fun.
Yeah.
And it's really disheartening to lose everything pretty much. I mean, we sold everything. I mean, like we put some stuff in storage.
A little bit,
and we had a little bit of stuff. And living with some friends that had a lot of kids. we had kids, and so I think there was 7 kids in the house. Is that correct? 8 kids in a house, 4 adults, and just really not doing well and trying to find work. And it's not easy to try to find work, especially when you're coming off being a self-employed for so long. And I took a temporary job. It was we're in northern Austin living, and the temporary job was in Bastrop, Texas. So it was a good hour and a half drive, about
hour maybe.
Well, with traffic or whatnot, and so we couldn't afford the gas, and so what I'll do is I'll drive and take clothes and whatnot and sleep in the Suburban. And so I could go to work every day and not have to drive back and forth. So, and just doing whatever we can to make it. We sold anything and everything that we had that could get any kind of money, and just really went into this place where I was done with ministry. I remember telling God, I am done with ministry. I'm sick. My back was hurting at the time a lot. I don't know, it was from the sleeping in the Suburban, maybe. Probably did
kidney pain.
Yeah, kidney pain. The kidney stones. I was, with the genetic kidney disease I had produced 3 kidneys in me. When I was 5, I had one quit working, got infected the other one. They removed 2 kidneys, had kidney stones from 5 on. And then when I was 18, that's when the doctors told me the kidney was failing. And I have kidney stones quite often.
And you were also not a candidate for a kidney transplant because the genetic kidney disorder would kill any kidney, infect any kidney that you got.
And so, here I am needing chelation. I mean, there's just all kinds of medical issues. And we were just like, just didn't know what we were going to do. I mean, it was just like at the end of all things, it seemed like. And we still went to church. I was still pressing in.
We did.
Still pressing into God. And went to a great church in Austin. Wasn't our friend's church. We wanted to go more spiritual field church that was more pressing into things, but we still didn't know idea what we were looking for, right?
No, yeah.
And they were going for everything there. It was really good. I mean, Graham Cook would come, and it was really amazing
every year.
And then Bill Johnson would come, and we weren't that familiar with Bill at the time, and then he would come. And I remember he did the conference, and you're like, you need to come to this conference. And I had to get off work because I was working disaster, and it was a fires, and you had to work every day, 7 days a week. And I had to get off work, and I somehow got off work and was able to go in the evenings to the sessions, and went to the healing meeting that Bill Johnson was doing. And now I believed in healing. We had come to understanding of words of knowledge and stuff the church was involved in. And of course I had healing in my own body before. And but I didn't want anything to do with church. I just wanted to be healed, And we went, and the first night Bill calls out, he says, I think this was 2009-ish. He says, we're starting to see this thing. I don't know how God does it, but he's starting to heal metal and bodies. And I'm like, I never heard of that. What do you think?
Oh, I'd never heard of that.
This is kind of craziness from where we're from,
Yeah.
And I stood up, and people around prayed. Bill Johnson likes to do. And, then Bill Johnson said, try it out to the whole audience, and, everybody that stood up for it. And I'm thinking, what out? I mean, I felt nothing's changed. I'm just going to go and stop bending. And I started bending and kept on bending and kept on bending and kept on bending. And I remember I was just like, wow, I was just blown away. I did not know God did this type of thing. I don't know about you.
I mean, I had to cut his toenails before we went that night.
Yeah,
so.
That was really frustrating for me. I was like, why can't I just,
because he couldn't reach. Like he didn't have that range of motion anymore.
And so I was bending and moving, and God healed my back of metal. And I don't know if he turned it into jello or made it flexible or what it is. But you know what? Don't have any issue. Actually, we live in Pennsylvania now, and where it really does get cold and we get snow, and that doesn't bother me whatsoever. I don't have any range of motion issues. Actually, I work out quite a bit. And been on roller coasters, playing basketball, to even Paige telling stories of how first time I ever sat Indian style with her and played with the kids on the floor, because I couldn't do that kind of stuff with my own kids for 10 years. And Paige's life, and then God just completely miraculously healed me in that first night. And then the next night that went, one of the students, this was Bill, had up in the front. Bill Johnson had up in the front. All the students that traveled with them to give words of knowledge. And one of them was word of knowledge for kidney stones. I had actually a kidney stone moving at the time. We're so used to kidney stones. We had home remedies. We had all kinds of stuff. I knew when they were bad. When I was like, oh, okay, now this is going to be severe. I need to go see a doctor and go, get treatment. I mean, we just knew. And it was a decent kidney stone. It was painful, but it wasn't where I couldn't work or anything. I was just like, I got to deal with this. And if you'd never had a kidney stone, I don't know how to describe it other than ow. It's painful. It is. She'll find me on the floor in front of the toilet, just in pain. I mean, just like it was just so painful. Kidney stones are so painful, and I stood up for that kidney stones, and they had Bill Johnson asked for people around to pray for all the different conditions that were called out, and people are praying for me for kidney stones, and I start getting this heating feeling, burning feeling on the right side of my lower back there.
Which is where you had no kidney.
And it lasted for like 2 hours, and then it moved to the other side. But during the prayer time, this gentleman, he was from Africa, spoke broken English, and he was in full African garb. So, I mean, like he was, didn't know anything. I didn't mention anything, but he pulled his hands off me and started praying for the cleansing of blood, which is so great. And God just really spoke to him. And I needed chelation, which is to clean out your blood so I could take antibiotics and my body doesn't react to everything like it's dangerous to me. And so he prayed over my blood and the cleaning of my blood at that time. And so the kidney stone pain went away. Praise God. I haven't had a kidney stone since. Then we, later on, I got sick, sinus infection, and I just went for it and took a Z-Pack. I had a doctor prescribe that, which put me in a hospital before because I couldn't take antibiotics, and no reactions to it whatsoever. So God cleaned out my blood, and we were just praising God for that. And I think the last night, the word knowledge were migraine headaches, wasn't it?
And insomnia.
Insomnia, yeah. And I literally, just my childhood, I didn't sleep very much. I had to watch one eye open and make sure I didn't get shot, killed, and sleeping in the tunnels. And so I didn't sleep. Every noise would wake me up. I mean, anything. And got healed of migraines and got healed of insomnia. And it was just really a restoration weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was just God really just putting out there a full weekend of touching and healing and wholeness. And Paige and watching it. I mean, Hunter and Peyton were a little bit younger, but they're still seeing differences and changes.
Oh, yeah.
You were noticing changes, like, before I might urinate once a day. I know we're talking about pee, but just physical problems that you have with all this. And then I was like, you said, I was worse than the boys,
Yeah, he could drink 10, 15 bottles of water and use the bathroom once in the morning and once before bed, and that was it. And all of a sudden, every restaurant, every store, Marcus is having to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it was just wild. I just had never seen him like that before.
It was just craziness. And then a year later, Bill Johnson's back at the church, and I really felt like I needed to tell him. I remember as when I really loved when people gave testimony to me about what an event or whatever meant to them or changed in their lives. And so I waited in this long line afterwards so I could actually talk to him. And he asked me what I needed prayer for, and Bill Johnson eyes lit up when I said, I don't need prayer. I need to tell you what God did last year. And so I tell him about, no more kidney stones, my back being healed, and the insomnia and the migraines. And he goes, you're a lightning rod for healing. and said that you need to start giving it away because God's going to use you, and prophesied over me and prayed over me. And we just really stepped out in that. Even though we were just living life as what we can, right?
Like nomads.
Right? And we end up living in a motel with 3 kids and 2 beds in 1 room and a kitchenette. Like this is like not nice. And then God opening doors, though, giving favor. We ended up renting a house that was for sale, and they took it off the market to lease it to us. The realty company convinced the owners to do it without putting a deposit down.
Not only that, but we were in Bastrop, which is where the fires had just occurred, and so every rental property that was available had been snatched up by people who had lost their homes.
And houses were being bought.
It was just I thought it was going to be impossible to find a rental house there.
Yeah, and God opened up the door, and and the neighborhood is connected to
right behind his office,
the office building where I worked. It was just so good, and we didn't even have down payments or anything like deposits or anything like that.
They let us pay them off with our rent each month.
Yeah. And just a lot of favor there, a lot of favor in the company. I went from temporary employee to one of the highest positions in 3 months. It's really
it was
God
unheard of in the company.
Opening just this favor across the board there. And, I'm just saying all that because there's a lot of pressing in. There's a lot of hardships. The pits were not good. The desert was not good. The jail was not good.
Nope.
But God was with us. And I'm quoting things that happened to Joseph in his seasons. He was thrown into the pit, then he was sold into slavery, he was in the desert, then he was in the house, and then he was in jail. But the scripture keeps on saying, but God was with him. And he kept on pressing in, and Joseph pressed into the dreams and interpreted dreams. And even though the dream itself is what caused him to go off his brothers go off the deep end, right? The encounter with God, he still pressed in. Even though we've been through all of this, and so much more since then. Life is life, and everybody out there, I know you're going through things, but I want to really encourage you that you can press in and press through. You can really go after God in the midst of the storms and see him show up, bring in peace. We've had just joy hit us in the motel room to where we had Christmas. We didn't have a tree. We had a blow up snowman as our tree. We just made do with whatever we had, and God just really give us joy and peace and open up doors for us, open up favor for us. We could tell story after story of provision or checks or whatnot of what God did in this season. But we just wanted to give you an overview of what the pressing in looks like. Whatever you're up against, you got to press in. You got to grab a hold of what God is saying or where God is. And I think it is Bill Johnson that I recently heard say that whatever you grab a hold of, the other you're going to despise. So if you grab a hold of your fear, you grab a hold of fear of injury or fear of poverty or fear of failing or whatever it is that Satan's trying to throw at you. If you grab a hold of that, you despise God. But if you grab a hold of God, then you despise the fear. You despise the poverty or despise whatever it is that's trying to come against you, and grab a hold of God and let him line you up. And when we come in alignment, he makes the crooked ways straight and he starts providing. And that's what you need to do. It's a journey. It's always a journey. It's always continuing and pressing in, because we still have to do it. Even today, we're going through hard times and pressing in and grabbing a hold of God's word, where he's called us to go and what he's called us to do. And yet we're in one of the most difficult financial seasons that we've been in, but God is still with us. And God is still for us, and we know that, and we believe that. And so it doesn't make it easy. It doesn't mean that we're all smiles and all the time. Sometimes I'm just like, God, I just need you to show up. But it is grabbing a hold of him and just pressing in. So, well, I hope this encouraged you as we talked about and just really opened up our lives to you. Thank you, Brenda, for just being willing to open up like that. I know that, you generally let me do all the talking on stage.
And off stage.
Yeah, right. But it's really good to have you and share part of this because it's real, both sides of the viewpoints and what we went through and remembering how it worked together. But God is good. God is with us and he's blessed us. So I hope this blessed you. I hope it encouraged you. There is a lifestyle of miracles out there, and you got to press in and grab a hold of it. We'll do future episodes talking about some of the crazy miracles that we see now and become normal in our lives, but it all started from this journey through these religious times into these times where we had nothing, and then in the midst of all nothingness, just going for a chance, a touch of God that happened at a Bill Johnson conference in Austin, Texas, and then a prophetic word, which I don't think anybody was ready for that, but Bill just said it, and then it changed everything. And set us on the path that we're now on, where we see what we see everywhere we go. So bless you. Tune into the next one. Have a good one.